morning, sir.
Keep an eye on see if they're kicking down this way.
How do I look?
Good, man.
Okay, yeah.
Looking good.
All right, ready when you are.
Ready?
Counting down in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome into Rice Stadium in Houston, Texas. He's Keith Mills of WBAL and the Navy Radio Network. I'm Luke Slaybaugh. This building constructed and built in 1950, 74-year-old.
Cool, I think it was constructed.
It's hosted JFK in a Super Bowl, and today it's Navy versus Rice with, as I just heard you say on the radio, all the midshipmen's goals ahead of them here in 2024.
Yeah, no question about it. Despite the disappointment of last week's Notre Dame game, their goals are still alive. When they came into the season, it's win the Commander-in-Chiefs. They already have beaten Air Force and Army. Actually playing right now up in West Point. They'll get their chance at Army later on. They've qualified for a bowl. That is also a box already checked. And they've still alive for the American Athletic Conference. Tulane won last night. Army is unbeaten in the conference. So big win for Navy today to keep pace with those teams.
Rice, a newcomer to the American Athletic Conference last year. They made back-to-back goal games. However, had a coaching change. Mike Bloomgren is out. Pete Alomar, the special teams guru, is in. Has not been a head coach in the United States. However, 1994, the University of Nuevo Leon in Mexico. Small college out there.
That is what you call Research 101 right there. All you young men and women want to get into business. That's how you do it.
It was just 30 years ago when I was born, but this team, Rice, has been hot and cold. They've got really good things going on in the special teams game. Had a kick return for touchdown, 100 yards last week. It's going to be an interesting challenge for this Navy team that is trying to shake off some self-inflicted wounds last week against Notre Dame.
Yeah, Pete Alomar said that Quentin Jackson, the guy that returned the kick, and he's been coaching special teams in the Pac-12 for years, said he's the best special teams player he's ever coached. With that said, yeah, this ball's in Navy's court today. They obviously want to flush out what happened last week, but you don't want to take last week into this week in regards to trying to prove that last week was a fluke. What you need to do is just play Navy football like they played up until that Notre Dame game. I mean, 6 turnovers last week, an aberration to say the least. Coming into the game, they only had 2. 6 of those turnovers led to 35 points. I would bet my house and yours that doesn't happen today. But it's going to take focus, concentration, attention to detail. This Rice defense is very physical, very athletic, and man, they try to get after it. P.J. Volker said this week they're as athletic and as physical as any team in the league. Offensive coordinator Drew Cronick says when you are that aggressive, sometimes it leaves you vulnerable to other things. We'll see how Navy's high-powered offense can attack this team. Listen, Navy moved the football against Notre Dame last week, and that is something they can hang the helmet on going into this week. They kind of self-destructed. They admitted that, but they pushed the ball up and down the field on them.
It leads you to believe that they may still have their best performance in them, that the ultimate Navy faithful might get a good performance today or later this year. As we opened, we noticed Coach Newberry in the background, along with other coaches and players, grasping at the turf. This is an interesting carpet here. I believe there were some alterations made to some of these players' cleats to be able to grasp this a little bit more. The conditions today are fickle. It has already felt like the surface of the sun in 110 here on the turf. It's also rained. This is going to be an interesting game to say the least.
Yeah, and again, you can't worry about that. As a player, you can't worry about if your cleats are going to hold up before the snap. You're going to have to figure it out as the game goes on. With that said, yeah, I think the weather's going to be kind of dicey all day. They're calling for off and on storms as we get into this football game. But both teams have to deal with it. Navy's played in hot weather throughout the year. It hasn't rained a whole lot on them, but we'll see how they deal with it. Again, they're multi-dimensional on offense. And today, offensively for Rice, they're expected to get back E.J. Warner. And any Navy fan can remember what happened this very weekend last month when he quarterbacked Temple. Man, he absolutely torched the Navy defense.
400 yards in the air. I was about to say, great, Kurt Warner's son is back. Just when you thought we had put that chapter behind us, he is still an owl, but a Southern owl.
He is a Southern owl, and I'm sure everybody thought after last year when they heard he was transferring, oh man, we're done with him. Well, he transferred to a team that's now in the conference, the Rice Owls. And he's missed a couple games this year because of a variety of injuries. But what he can do is execute the short passing game as well as I saw anybody do it last year in college football against Navy, who was very stout defensively under Brian Newberry and P.J. Volker. I mean, last year, the first drive alone, he was 6 for 6 with pass plays of 6, 2, 3, 13, 16, capped off with a 22-yard touchdown. touchdown. Later in the game, he engineered a 12-play, 81-yard drive. Again, 4 for 4 in the air, capped off with a touchdown. He is able to launch it, and he is able to dice you up in the short passing game. This is going to be, I believe, a major test for this Navy defense today.
Before the Notre game, there had been some promising performances from the secondary. Rayon Lane forcing a fumble, multiple interceptions against Charlotte, and Air Force, Deshaun Peele having a great game in Charlotte and in Air Force. Kind of took a misstep against Notre Dame, but it seems like they are still grasping for that lockdown elite defense that we saw a season ago under P.J. Volker.
Yeah, and I thought they really played that way against Charlotte, man. They took them right out of the game early. You don't get 2 interceptions every day in big-time college football and return one of them 80 yards like Deshaun Peele did. With that said, yeah, you're always trying to strive for perfection. If you can't get perfection, you want to execute as well as you can. The challenge today is trying to keep E.J. Warner off balance, again, with disguising looks, with pressure from different angles, and lock down on their wide receivers. They have not been able to really pass the ball a lot this year because he hasn't played a lot. Dean Connors is their best player on offense other than E.J. He's a multi-dimensional running back who can also get out of the backfield and catch the ball. And it's going to be interesting to see how Navy attacks them with playmakers like Colin Ramos and Kyle Jacob, Peele, and Gray Lane. Last year they intercepted him twice. Peele and Andrew Duhart. We'll see if they can get a couple more today.
Duhart fully healthy, it appears. Doesn't seem like injuries are going to be much of an issue today. You mentioned keeping Warner off balance. It seems like this is a legacy game potential for a Justin Reed or maybe Luke Pierce and Jackson Campbell coming off the edge. What could this game mean for the front?
It's absolutely huge. I mean, they played a lot of guys the last couple of weeks. There's some depth. Fatigue shouldn't be an issue at this stage of the season. Again, they put some pressure on EJ last year, let him get out of a couple of sacks, and he turned them into kind of big plays. So you got to corral him. You got to be disciplined in your rush lanes. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of edge blitzes from Luke Pierce and the guys outside. And don't be surprised if you see a safety blitz or two as well. Trying just to mix things up, keep him off his line, and have him think more about what he's going to do rather than who's coming after him in the front 7 or 8.
Gotcha. Before we close this down, what other thoughts or reflections do we have before this American Conference game?
Yeah, I'd really like to see Navy get off to a good start again. Flush last week behind them. Rare that we saw Alex Texa drop a pitch. Rare that we saw a mesh fumble from Blake Horvath. Rare that we saw 2 muffs on punts. One from Eli Heidenreich. 6 turnovers is an aberration, not just for this team, but for most teams in college football. The goal today, play really polished football offensively, get off the field as many times as you can on 3rd down, maximize your drives, make them play catch-up.
Be sure to listen to Keith Mills on the radio broadcast along with Joe Miller and Scott Wyckoff, and sending our best to Pete Medhurst recovering from brain surgery.
Yeah, got some good news yesterday from him. He came out of surgery well. Still a long way to go in his recuperation, but everybody within the Navy football program, he and I also broadcast Navy games together as well, part of their broadcast team. So WBAL in Baltimore, obviously the Naval Academy, wish Brenda and Pete, Kelly, and the kids all the best.
Yep, 27 years, I believe, as the voice of the Mids. He's
Navy, man.
A good influence and a mentor to me, and a great man. So, Pete, you're not watching this, but get well. Appreciate it. All right, guys, Navy and Rice kicking off 4 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. He's Keith Mills. I'm Luke Slabaugh. See you later.
Outstanding.